We'll start this morning with Israel's deadliest day of violence in 50 years. Fighting continues this hour after Palestinian group Hamas instigated a deadly surprise attack Saturday. Early yesterday morning, Hamas fighters broke out of the blockaded Gaza Strip and into nearby Israeli towns in an unprecedented surprise attack during a major Jewish holiday. They invaded Israeli territory by land, sea, and air, killing 300 people at least, including 26 soldiers, and wounding at least 1,500 Israelis, according to local media. Hamas has also taken an unknown number of civilians, including kids and soldiers, captive into Gaza. In response, Israel launched its own airstrikes, and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu declared the country is at war. Many world leaders, including Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, have condemned what happened and publicly voiced support for Israel. With more on all of this, Israel's ambassador-designate to Canada, Iddo Moed, is here in studio with me now. Ambassador-designate, good to see you. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
I do wish it were under different circumstances. I'm wondering if you can update our viewers on, in particular, the number of people who are being held captive right now and essentially the latest on the situation.
Okay, well, there's a number of Israelis that are being held captive in Gaza. We don't know the exact numbers, but there are tens of Israelis there. We know that for a fact. We are still fighting. The IDF is still fighting at some location in the southern part of Israel, some settlements, some kibbutzim and other little towns. And at the same time also outside Israel, some other things are taking place. So in the northern part, there were some provocations by Hezbollah. In Cairo, in Alexandria, an Egyptian policeman attacked Israeli tourists. On the roads in Israel this morning, some attack was taking place, and terrorists who hijacked a car were stopped just before reaching one of the biggest population centers in the country. So what we are experiencing right now, as Prime Minister justly said, is a war. It's an all-out war by a terrorist organization that is supported by Iran, that is armed by Iran, that has links to other terrorist organizations in the region. And I think we are facing, indeed, one of the biggest security challenges a country has faced in its history.
I want to pick up on the point on Iran. I was listening to American coverage, and so far the State Department in the U.S. has said it's too early to determine for sure if Iran helped coordinate this. But the nature of the attack was so coordinated that, of course, right away, that is the suspicion. Is it your suspicion, or do you have any information that confirms that?
Well, it's very easy to deduct this from things that have happened before. The coordination that was taking place between Hamas leaders and Iranian leadership that was visiting the region, Beirut, Damascus, and so on. The fact that they've been using sophisticated technologies, all kinds of drones and other equipment that they haven't had in the past, means that they had support, outside support. The only interested party, the only party that absolutely for years has been supporting them is Iran. So everything points to Iran. And there is really no need for evidence, concrete evidence in this case. It's very clear that they are behind it. If you look at the declarations of the leaders in Tehran, the celebrations that took place in the streets of Tehran, you know that Iran is behind this.
What do you expect as a result from the international community?
We expect the international community to come out and, as also happened here in Canada, outright condemn this horrendous attack, but also warn other parties in the region, like Syria, like Lebanon, to stay out of this and not to create other new fronts, because that will only Israel will retaliate in a very strong, as Prime Minister also said, and very, very resolute reaction to whatever happens next. So we want to eradicate the terrorist sources in the Gaza Strip. We have nothing against the population. They are not our enemies. In fact, Israel has done a lot to improve and alleviate conditions for Palestinians in the Gaza Strip in recent months. And we will, however, fight with all our means all those who want to annihilate the state of Israel, which is the Hamas, and any other party that has that interest.
What does that mean?
That means that what we've done in the past and will continue to do is to defend ourselves and make sure that people and territory is not threatened by any outer source, terrorist organization, entity, or whatsoever.
Has anyone from the federal government in this country reached out to you?
That's a little problematic because I'm ambassador-designate at the moment, so it's more of a technicality. I'll be presenting my credentials very soon, and I think after that it will be easier to have direct contact with the elected officials.
Do you know if there has been any contact outside of yourself at the higher levels of government?
Yes, there have been contacts, and we feel that Canada supports Israel, is standing shoulder to shoulder with Israel at this moment, and we know this from the highest levels, and we appreciate that very much.
I've been watching a lot of the local media coverage in Israel, and two things have stood out to me. There are many questions being raised about how one of the most sophisticated intelligence systems in the world, that being of Israel's, could have not seen this coming or had any indication that an attack of this nature was coming. And second, there's some criticism being levied, or questions, I guess, being asked about the speed or lack thereof with which the military in Israel responded to the severity of these attacks. Can you speak on those points?
There are a lot of questions that will be asked and need to be answered fully once this whole situation ends and things subside. But I think at this moment we should really focus on fighting the terrorists, getting our women, children, elderly back into Israel, and making sure that people in Israel are safe and that the borders are secure. Of course, all these issues will have to be dealt, these questions will have to be dealt after the war, but the heroism that you see now from Israeli soldiers and civilians, and the fight that is being put up by the IDF against terrorists is now really our main focus, and this is where all the international support that Israel is garnering is important for. And I must say at this moment also that in the last 24 hours I've received so many calls and shows of support and solidarity from politicians, from leaders, from community leaders, from business community, everywhere. That's really heartwarming, and we're very, very happy with that. And I would like to call on the Canadian society also to continue to support Israel and Israelis at this moment of war.
May I ask, were you surprised at the fact that intelligence did miss it? Just again, given the breadth of it, the fact that it happened outside of Gaza, and the brutality of the violence that was levied.
Well, brutality, we know who we are dealing with, but the scope, yes, that's really mind-boggling. The fact that this kind of an attack took place is really mind-boggling. This is something that I think a lot of people are surprised by in Israel. But we know that this organization has on its agenda, its first clause on its charter is to annihilate the state of Israel. So in that sense, it's not surprising.
Ambassador-designate, I have to leave it there. I appreciate your time this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.